Welcome back to the Menopause Movement podcast. This week, I'm so excited to have Laurie Wright on the podcast. Laurie was a burnt-out workaholic who, as she was nearing her 50th birthday, got tired of settling for what she didn't want in both her marriage and her career. And she decided to up-level her life by leaving her marriage of 25 years and starting a brand new career as a coach at age 55. Now at age 60, she's developed a program called Make the Rest Your Best to help passionless empty nesters create their own unique heart-centered action plans so they are ready to enter their next chapter with renewed passion, purpose, and focus. It's so exciting to have Laurie on the show. And in the show, we talk about empty nest, change, transformation, creating community, overcoming beliefs. We talk about some metaphysical, really, we get into some very metaphysical kinds of religious stuff. How to dream a new dream, what anxiety can do to our lives, how we can have such a sense of loss of identity with the empty nest. We talk about the Menopause Movement membership quite a bit, and we just really spend some quality time talking about her life and all the changes that she made. Now, at the end of this episode, make sure you visit the website, drmichellegordon.com/podcasts. That's DrMichellellegordon, all one word, /podcasts, PODCASTS. Don't forget the S. And you'll be able to find the show notes plus the links back to Laurie's webpage, as well as a link to the Shakeology that we spoke about in the program. Now, if you enjoy this episode, please make sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement. Now, here is Laurie Wright. Wow, we got Laurie here. I'm so excited to have you here, Laurie. So Laurie, Laurie's a coach and she helps women through midlife. So let's just talk a little bit about how you got there.
Gosh, so it's been a long journey, and actually I've only been coaching for about 6 years, and so late in life kind of career move, but the first few years was part-time, and it's evolved from health and fitness coaching into more of a life coaching, because what I've realized through the process is my heart is trying to help people who at midlife have settled for a life that they don't want, and I want to help them figure out what they do want. So there's a lot of parallels with what I went through in my life. And since I kind of started my journey in transformation like 13 years ago to the month, almost to the day, when I left my 25-year marriage, I tell people I have had 3 midlife transformations in 3 different categories. So I have one in love, one in career, and health. Health first was my second one, and then career was my third one. So I've now totally transformed.
Yeah, you recently made a huge change, didn't you?
Yes, I quit my corporate job. I have been in the corporate world since my 20s and have done really well in the technology sector. And in fact, I worked for AOL. So I was one of the people that like helped the internet come to play. So it's kind of funny that I am now using the internet as my vehicle for helping people.
Oh man,
But
I just have to
yeah.
say, I was in medical school in the 90s. I started medical school in 96, and I remember so many days sitting at my desk waiting for AOL to dial up with that sound. That sound that I'll never forget. And the millennials don't know anything about it, because we got wired pretty quick. But the dial up to get to the internet and
Mhm,
how fast it seemed
mhm.
back then and compared to now, I mean, what we're living in now would feel like magic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And some places you couldn't even get it. I remember I used to have to travel, and I'd go to hotels, and I'd be like trying to hook into their phone, in the room, and some places didn't like have you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was there when it was a monthly pay format, and then we had a where we had so much growth that people couldn't get through and kept getting busy signals. So one of my good friends, Jerry McDonald, who worked there, she was the person responsible for getting all the phone lines set up. So that was a crazy time.
There's a really great, series that's on Netflix. I can't remember which network put it out, but it's called *Halt and Catch Fire*. If you haven't seen it, you might like it because it's all about the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of the internet and uh, getting the computers right and the personalities
Mm-hmm.
of people. I mean, it was really, I think it was 3 seasons altogether, and it had some really good acting and very great writing, but it was really compelling to watch because I lived through it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like living through watching the Chernobyl series, or I watched the OJ trials back then,
Oh,
right?
I in
And
my
I was
AOL office, we all like went in my
yeah.
office and watched it on the
Yeah,
TV.
but
Yeah.
then I watched Sarah Paulson play the lead in the TV series, and it was just as good.
Yeah.
Did you see that one?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and then the Menendez brothers, and
Uh-huh.
their trial was on. So it's an interesting era, I guess I would say. I lived in LA at the time, and so
Mm-hmm.
both of those things. I mean, I
Wow.
remember I was watching the NBA finals, and they
Mm-hmm.
cut away from the NBA finals because of the stupid slow chase of OJ on the
The Ford
freeway.
Explorer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we missed part of the NBA finals, and then it was like a little box at the bottom, and,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have I mean, we have so much more technology now, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's an interesting, like,
Yeah.
segue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go there, but that's where we
Yeah.
went.
That's
So,
okay.
alright, so you worked for at AOL.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was there for quite some time. I was there from when they had 200 people to when they had 90,000 after the merger with Time Warner. So I saw a lot of growth, saw a lot of change, and I grew. So I started as a technical writer, and I worked my way up to vice president. So it was quite an incredible uh, learning experience for me. But what I learned through it all is that nobody ever asked me what I wanted to do. Nobody ever, they kept promoting me. I worked really hard because I am like that. You tell me you need something, I'll get it done. So I have that kind of personality. Worked hard because there was a lot to do there. And I was rewarded for it, but I remember clearly when I became a project manager. I loved juggling lots of things. I loved setting goals with a team. I mean, and it's funny, that's what I teach now, but I loved that. And there was so much diversity because a project always ended in a new one. So I was always challenged with new work and new interesting things. So I was like the manager of chat, and I was the manager of their email. I was kind of the project manager of everything till we started to grow, and I had to like get help. So my boss came in and he said, I want you to be the manager of the project managers. And at that point we had like 8, and they were all reporting to him. And I said, well, I really like what I'm doing right now, was my response. And he said, well, I want you to do it. So you think about it and let me know. And I remember saying, Eric, who was my coworker, I said, Eric would be good. So basically I was like saying, Eric can be my boss, essentially. And I knew Eric had aspirations. And so he said, no, no, I want you to do it. So I went home. I told my husband, of course, my husband, who was a police officer. And so quickly became the breadwinner in the family. And he was like, that sounds like a great idea. And I was like, well, I really like what I'm doing. I'm really happy. And he said, because I like a diverse group of people, which I had, and I love challenges, which I had. And so, anyways, I 4 days later he came in and he said, okay, are you gonna do it? And like any good employee, I was like, okay. So I did it. So, and then that led to being a director. And then that led to I just kept getting promoted. I remember the day I was promoted to vice president. I just transferred into our customer service area. We had like, I mean, I had 5,000 people under me that a lot were outsourced in the Philippines, and we had 5 call centers throughout the country. But and my team was actually very small. I only had about like I went from a team in the tech. I was in the technology group of like 55 people to a smaller team of like 15, but you know, a larger responsibility. And I transferred thinking it was a straight out transfer. And my new boss came in and said, you know, he handed me a piece of paper. He didn't even like say you're a vice president. He goes, congratulations on your promotion, I guess. And I was like, I looked at the piece of paper and I was like, what? WTF? You know, I was like, and it was so cute because I called, it's the first thing you do, you know, you want to share it with your loved ones. And I remember calling my mom and dad, and I told my mom that I'd been promoted to vice president. And she goes, you're the vice president of AOL?
Oh.
She had this like image of like one president, one vice president, I guess. And I said, no, mom, there's like 250 vice presidents. At that point, you know, we were 90,000 people in the company.
Yeah.
But the point of this story is that no matter what you do in life, you have to want it from the inside, from the heart, and not because it's what's going to make your parents proud, or because it's what's going to make your husband happy, or, you know, give you the BMW or Mercedes in the driveway. It's got to be, if it doesn't come from inside, it's not going to last, or you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And what happened within a couple of years of that job is I started to get anxiety attacks in the job. I had straight out anxiety attacks. I was in a room full of people in a conference room, and I had an anxiety attack. It was one of those where you just had I was talking and I had to like leave. Like everybody's looking at me like, what happened? You know?
So, question for you: when was that before, during, or after menopause?
I started there when I was 33, and this was probably 10 years in. So 43. I was in
Okay.
my
So you
40s.
might have been perimenopausal.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, because the reason I bring this up is that there's during menopause, a lot of women will say that I'm all of a sudden having anxiety and I'm not performing as well as I think I should, or I don't feel like myself, or I feel like an alien has beamed down and taken up residence in my body.
yeah,
And while, you know, we can attribute a lot of that to menopause, I mean, we could also, for you, attribute it to the fact that you were doing something that, as one of my mentors, his name is Sri Kumar Rao, likes to say, if it doesn't make your heart sing, you shouldn't be
yeah,
doing it.
yeah. It was like I was what's the saying? A square. There, I was a round peg being tried to put into a square hole.
Yeah.
Or a square hole trying to be put in a round peg. Yeah, because the
Right.
square won't fit in the
Yeah.
round. But anyways, and so I couldn't like relate it. I also had a daughter. I have two daughters, and the older one had collapsed from a pulmonary embolism. So that happened about the same time. So it was a combination of me just feeling misplaced in my career, and me losing control because I also had imposter syndrome because I don't have a college degree. So
Okay.
everything I've done is like on the job training.
Right.
And so I was working, my peers were people who had gone to Harvard Business School and Stanford, and had these like amazing careers prior to AOL. So I think I had, you know, I was comparing myself, which is we should never do. And then I had this, you know, near death experience with my daughter. So it was kind of a wake up call for me. Like and again, I mean, this is over time. And so it's not like one day I woke up and had this reckoning. I it was a series of things where I just started getting deeper and deeper into knowing that there's got to be more to life than this. And
Wow.
on top of that, my marriage. So you know, as most of us go into menopause, we're we're getting older, and our children are getting older. And so my children, even though I worked and I stayed at home for like the first 3 years, and then because I was a waitress, so it was like easy to quit that. But before I really started my career, because I had my kids really young, and they went off to college, and I was even more lost. because they were my everything. I worked, but when I came home, it was them and their sports and their activities. And so when they left, it was really a sad time for me. And I'm a real positive person, so but that just tells you how bad it was. And so I was just in a big funk thinking about where's life going. And I started to think, am I gonna die before I ever have passion in my life
Mm.
again? And I started to question whether I ever had passion. Well, I didn't think I mean, there was a short period at AOL where I had passion, because when I was that project manager doing those projects that I loved, but I was misplaced. And I believe I was misplaced in my marriage. I mean, that was my choice, but I had been in love with somebody in college, which was a super passionate relationship, and we had broken up, and it just wasn't the right time for us. And I very quickly, he was my rebound, my husband, and I married him very quickly. And he was a great guy. I'm not saying he wasn't a great guy, but we were always more like friends than lovers. And so I was like somebody who hated divorce. Oh my gosh. It was like, that was the worst word you could possibly say. And we come from a generation, I think, our age, where divorce, really, you don't go there. And he and I were willing to go to counseling. We had been to counseling throughout our marriage a couple times. One time I was ready to leave, like after 6 years, and went to counseling, and I got back on track. And then after 16 years, he was ready, and we got back on track. So it was all about, really fighting to save our marriage, and because it takes work, and you fall apart from each other, and kids really direct you to them instead of your relationship. And
Yeah.
but we really wanted to keep our family together. I mean, that we had a unified goal in that. And I also felt like I made vows.
Mhm.
I made a commitment that I thought, I was supposed to keep forever. But when you get to a point where you're dying inside, and you think, I mean, I was 47, and my old boyfriend's name, it came up at a reunion. And within 3 months, and the crazy thing is, if anybody who's listening believes in manifestation, so my reunion was end of September, and at the end of October, I was invited to a wedding. So I went to my friend's wedding in San Diego, so it was other side of the country, had a little too much to drink, and went back to my hotel room, and I Googled my old boyfriend,
Uh-huh.
because my old boyfriend, he didn't live where I lived. I knew where he lived. I knew what he had been doing, his profession. He was in real estate. So I Googled like his name. I remembered his initial, I remember his middle name. And I got a phone number, which was actually a business phone number, and I left a message. So I guess I'm the poster child of like going after that lost love.
You drunk
Uh,
dialed.
yeah, yeah, drunk dial. That's what I did. I got a little liquid courage is what I did.
Yeah.
And mind you, I to be perfectly upfront, I was still married on paper. We weren't intimate. He was living actually in another city, so we were kind of living more like brother and sister, I would say. So it was kind of what I felt was the slow separation of that was ultimately going to happen. But I'm still not justifying my actions, having been a married woman. But I did ringy ding him, and got a voicemail and left a message that I was basically, "This is Laurie, blah blah blah, from college, and if call me back." And so, and then that was that. It was late on a Friday night, and I went about the wedding was the next day, and then by kind of Tuesday, I'd forgot. Well, it was still in the back of my mind. I was like, that was stupid. Well, Tuesday morning, my phone rang, and it was him. And I remember looking at my phone and realizing the number was his area code, and my heart dropping and like beating, and then picking it up, and his voice was the same from all those years ago. And I basically, we had a long conversation, like 45 minutes catching up. And within a few days, we met for lunch halfway. We were like 2 hours apart. And I came home from that lunch knowing that I wanted I wanted to see, what possibilities there were with him. So I came home from lunch and I took the next action, which was legal separation. And we've been together ever since, and we've been married for 10 years. So I think that liquid courage turned into like sober courage, because that was like
Yeah.
the scariest thing I ever did. To but I decided at that point, I got to the point. Oh, and about the manifestation thing, he in August had gone out to lunch or dinner with some clients, and the woman, because you know how women are so curious, the woman had said, "Why have you never gotten married? You're just such a nice guy. You've never gotten married." And he goes, "Well, there's never been anybody like this girl that I dated in college." This was like 6 weeks before my reunion, when his name was brought up to me. Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
have you seen so and so?" And I'm like, "Why would I have seen him?" He's like, "We don't even live in the same town." But they played rugby. The guy whose name brought his name up played rugby with him. And so, and when he told me this, and then I called him, so he like put it out in the universe. And she tried to find me because he knew I had worked at AOL.
Yeah.
She called AOL and he showed me her email that she wrote him in August saying, "I don't think she worked there anymore because I couldn't find her." And so here, the universe like
Yeah. Well,
called to
this is
me.
really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because there are, there's a field of infinite possibilities out there.
Mhm.
And this is part of what I teach in the Minnow system and in the membership. We talk a lot about infinite possibilities and how if we can get aligned with
Mhm.
with what it is we want, with um, understanding, and get into a life of gratitude and joy. And once
Mhm.
we get into that, then pretty much anything is available to us.
Mhm.
And if you've read the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert,
Mhm.
she wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, I
Right?
love that. I love
Yes.
her story. She had
Yeah.
kind of the reckoning moment.
So in in Big Magic, she talks about how she had a story and she was working on it. And the story was about, and this is a rough paraphrase, but it's really interesting. So she was talking about, she was creating a story that was about a contractor in Brazil in the rainforest, roughly, right? So she met another author. She had put it aside for a while. She was going to come back to it. She met another author on stage. They shared a kiss, and she stopped working on that project. And not too long after that, the other author created this story all about how the rainforest in Brazil and how the rainforest will swallow up equipment. It's really a fascinating story. And the reason I bring it up is that, the universe is going to give us so much, right? It's going to give us ideas. They're going to come to us, but it's not going to stick around forever for us to take action.
Right.
And even if you did a drunk dial,
Mhm.
you did some action.
Yes.
And that action then led to this brand new life where you
Yeah.
are so fulfilled. So
Yeah.
that's the purpose of that story.
Well, and I think when you have a few drinks too, the ego kind of flushes away. That's like keeping you in your safe place, and you allow yourself more to get to that inner voice,
It
you know?
can, it can. I mean, I would argue that with a consistent and regular spiritual practice,
Sure,
you can
that's a
get
better
yeah, you
form.
can get there a lot faster and better.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I don't drink anymore. And I don't drink anymore because I want to have a consistent and regular
Yeah,
spiritual practice. And I find that when I do drink, it interferes with my
yeah,
ability to be in contact with the divine. And
yes.
so I
That was the premeditative me, so it took wine, but now I don't need wine. You're very,
Yeah,
very right. I'm glad
yeah,
you pointed that out. We don't want
yeah.
people going out and drinking.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I'm just saying, I mean, listen, a lot of us have used liquid courage to do all sorts of things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, even in my group, my membership, we've talked a lot about, whether we want to drink or not drink. And for
mhm,
me, it it's not that I've had any trouble with it, but I've found that not drinking, is just an easy decision once
mm,
I made it.
Mhm.
And, I do go to a lot of conferences. You and I are at a lot of the same conferences, and oftentimes it'll be cocktail parties.
Mhm.
And I've decided, at those cocktail parties that the best thing to do is just have, soda water with lime. And then people think I'm drinking, but I'm not really drinking.
Exactly. That's the
And
best. Yeah.
but the other thing, I mean, getting off on a tangent here about alcohol, but just to say is that the last time I was back in, well, not the time before, the last in Southern California for our next level meeting,
Mhm.
I stayed with my cousin, and I was on the road. I was talking to her on the road, and I said, I don't understand why I drink. I know why I don't smoke pot, right? I don't
Mhm.
smoke pot because I hate the way it makes me feel.
Mhm.
And it's an easy decision for me. I just, you want to smoke pot, go ahead. I have no judgment, but I don't like how it makes me feel because I feel like a 15-year-old paranoid, insecure human.
Mhm.
And then I have to go to sleep, right?
Mhm.
And
With the
so
munchies.
what's that?
With the munchies.
With the munchies, exactly. But usually I just feel so like it's just like feels awful to me, so I just don't do it. So then I think, why do I drink? Because the thing is that with alcohol, I feel pretty good in the moment. You know,
Mhm.
but then I feel like crap the next day. Like I'll have a headache all day,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
I won't be able to get out of bed, or I won't be able to perform like if I want to go for a run or something. So I said, I'm just gonna stop this.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I did. And so
Yeah. I don't know if you listen to Brooke Castillo, but she
no.
did a episode on her podcast recently, and she interviewed somebody who actually has she teaches, like, stopping drinking.
Oh, is she like the
And,
when you're no beer people?
I don't know, but she was it was very interesting. I was fascinated with it because I don't listen to her a lot, but so I was in the car and I was trying to find something to listen to,
Yeah.
and it was very fascinating that the girl who has the program had a problem with it, like blacking out and
Yeah.
stuff. But Brooke has since stopped, and because this woman has made a big difference. But she said exactly what you said. It's easy once you decide. It's like, you
Right.
know, if you still, it's just a decision. So
Yeah. Well, I think and you know what we can do is we can take this analogy of alcohol and we can apply it to just about anything else. I mean, one of the things that I teach in the membership is behavior change. And I
Mhm.
teach behavior change from a scientific standpoint so that we can understand the psychological and the physical aspects of it. And as long as we're alive, we're wanting, if you're in a membership, about menopause or whatever, it's about a self-improvement, right? so
Mhm.
so the assumption is that anybody who wants to come into my membership is someone who wants some self-improvement. And
Mhm.
so and in the membership then we talk about how to create new behaviors in a
Mhm.
way that will stick, because
Mhm.
how many of us have gained and lost the same 20, 25 pounds over and over and
Mhm.
over, and who
Right.
wouldn't like to get to a place where they could just drop that weight, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And so we talk a lot about the science of behavior change, but I found that in doing so, meditation plays a huge part in that.
Mhm.
And without being able to connect to that infinite source of, it's hard to say, love or possibility, whatever, divine. If you want to talk about God and Jesus, that's another option there. But there is something bigger than us, and I have to
Mhm.
tell you, for the longest time I didn't believe that.
Mm.
So
Well, I think, with a science background, it's like you want more proof, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. So I was very religious. Like I believed everything as a teenager.
Mhm.
And I went to church and I believed that Jesus was the only way. And I was really dogmatic. And
Mhm.
as I grew up, I realized that that was dumb. And that, if there's a God, the God has to be much more inclusive than what
Mhm.
the Christians of America will teach, right?
Mhm.
And then I started realizing that it's not Christ, it's the Christians that's the problem,
Mm.
right? Because
Mhm.
the Christians decide that the Bible that was written by men, which is a
Mhm.
whole nother story. We can talk about the patriarchy, but maybe that's not appropriate for this day. But that their interpretations of this book that was written by fallible men have created all of this dogma that traps us into certain types of thought prisons,
Mhm.
right? And so what I decided to do was start looking at elsewhere, looking for other ways to think. And one of the ways I found was meditation.
Mm.
And then I found guys who teach, guys and ladies who teach the science of, you know, when we meditate, right? And when we meditate effectively, we are actually affecting the epigenetics of our body. So the genes, that's the double helix, right? And on the top of the genes are these changeable parts that can be influenced by external forces and internal forces, like the way we behave. And so it's fascinating to me. So I've
Mhm.
really gone off on a tangent here,
Yeah,
but
that's okay. So while you were talking, you made me think of this really powerful Oprah Soul Sunday episode I watched.
huh?
You and I are consumers of all this wonderful, all these people that are wonderful and make us think. But her name is, just for your listeners, if they want to find this episode, it's not. It's very recent, and it's so funny because it popped up on my phone. And usually, I always watch replays. I don't like to watch things live because I speed them up.
Yeah, I'm the same
But
way.
it was like, it's just like that little universe, you were saying you take the action when it presents itself.
Yeah.
And like Tony Robbins says, he talks about breadcrumbs. It's like there's breadcrumbs, and most of the time we walk over them. We don't even see them, but they're there. And so, anyways, her name is Sister Joan Chittister, Chittister, Chittister. But she has a really great episode about, you know, God, and what, she doesn't think it's a he, or she just thinks it's in you know an energy, and coming from the church. I just thought she always wanted to be a nun. When she was 3, she had this thing that she wanted to be a nun.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting episode.
Well,
I do find it
just
I
to
find it fascinating.
address the part about God being male real
Mhm.
quickly. God is male because of the patriarchy, and God is male because of written language. And for anybody who wants to understand that a little bit more, probably the best book I've ever read on how all of the goddesses got murdered by the gods is The Alphabet versus the Goddess. And
Mhm.
so, what happened in history is that initially all the gods were female because females give birth. And so
Mm.
gods were female. And then we had the advent of written language. We started using the other side of the brain. And as we
Mm.
started using that side of the brain, more and more of the masculine took over. And
Mm.
as the masculine took over, then these stories of how the goddesses were um, broken apart and turned into this, the breast became this mountain, and the uterus and the reproductive organs became this valley. And so it's really, really fascinating, but
Mm.
it is the basis of the patriarchy is written language.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's absolutely fascinating stuff,
And what's
but
the name of the book
it's
again?
the alphabet versus the goddess.
The Alphabet versus the Gods.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's an amazing book. It's long.
How did we get here? I don't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
know.
No, this is where we came. This is why I don't script these podcasts, because I think, we have conversations. So,
It's 2 menopausal women just having these,
yeah, we're
wise
having, metaphysical
conversations.
metaphysical conversation. But in terms of God, right?
Mhm,
God is not male or female. As a matter of fact, God, even when you go back to the Bhagavad Gita, which is ancient India, there's three parts to God, and it's in the Christian tradition, it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and in the Bhagavad Gita, it's three others that I can't remember off the top of my head, but one is like a father figure, and one is like a mother figure, and one is like a spirit, and so there is that it's the same. So if we are made in God's image, then God has to be male and female. And
mhm,
the problem is the patriarchy. And even to the point where even in 2019, on TV, when you watch TV, when there's a child that is lost, the question is always, was it a boy? As if
mm,
having a penis makes someone more valuable.
mm.
And having can't come up in the corporate world, and you probably know that no matter what, men are paid more. um and
I rarely sat at a table with another woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
primarily.
So you
I have
really
a
were
really funny story. Do you wanna
uh,
tell me
yeah,
let me
sure. But you
my
were a
most
trailblazer and you probably
my
didn't even
most
know it.
embarrassing my most embarrassing executive in being an executive at AOL story, and I can't believe I usually only tell this, having had a few drinks around the table when I'm with people that are like I like to ask questions like, "What's your most embarrassing story?" So I'll share this because you never know what's gonna come out.
Sure.
But your readers will probably think this is
Yeah.
really funny, or your listeners. So was I had my period. Where you're a doctor, you teach
Yeah,
menopause stuff,
sure.
so well, I'm sure you talk about not having periods anymore.
Yeah.
That was in the day when I had my period. And so I was busy getting ready for work and I had a cute little sweater on. So I put my sweater on. I knew I needed a couple of tampons. I stuck them in my pocket and I went off to work thinking as soon as I get to my car, I'll transfer them to my purse. But of course, my brain was thinking about work. I get first thing had a meeting. The the bad thing is that the sweater I put on had half pockets. They weren't full pockets.
Okay.
They weren't full pockets. So all men. It was a big conference table with all men, and I'm sitting there, and at some point I move, and my arm hits my pocket, and I feel the crinkle of the tampon. Like no woman executive sitting at a table wants to know that she's sitting there with two tampons hanging out of her pocket with all to
Okay.
see.
And
So what I did is once first of all, I was like mortified when I realized I'm sitting here and the whole meeting thus far, I don't even know how far into the meet. We were close to the end, I think. um that my, they, they all know I have my period now. Of course most of them probably have wives, children, girls. But so what I did to get out of that situation is I just pulled myself up really closely to the table, and then I just sat there, and then when the meeting ended, I like started a conversation with the person next to me, so I had an excuse to like be the last one out, right?
yeah,
And then I just was like, and then I like pretended like I was writing something. I don't know what I did, but all I know is that I stayed glued to that table, which was kind of silly because now that you think about it, everybody knew those tampons were there. So I probably should have just pulled them out of my pocket and stuck them in whatever, purse I had at the time. But anyways, that made me think of my
well,
most
I think this is a
embarrassing
really good
story.
example to talk about beliefs because, it's an opportunity to talk about beliefs because, our beliefs shape our reality, right? And in that situation, the model that you had was that anybody knowing that you had a period was embarrassing,
Mm,
right? But
true.
what if it was like a good thing, bad thing, who knows, right? It was,
Yeah.
you had tampons in your pocket. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I could see myself now, maybe not back then because I
Uh,
was really weird about my period,
mhm.
but I could see myself now like if I had tampons in my pocket, it's, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a normal part of
Yeah.
female life.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes one of the things that I like to teach is, if you have a thought about something, if you have a belief about something, it's really important for us to step back, observe that belief
Hmm.
and say, is that belief serving me?
Right.
Is that truth?
Hmm.
Truth? Is that truth really serving me? Because if it's not, then I can create a new truth.
Hmm.
And that's what
Right.
I love about the fact that, in midlife and menopause, we can create our lives anew,
Right.
and it gives us
Yes.
this opportunity. And that's
Mhm.
something that you teach as well.
Yes.
So in the interest of time, I think we should talk a little bit more about let's hear how you help women and
Well,
men
so
and
yeah, so
people.
the evolution is got married, moved, and then was still doing the jobs, the project management stuff that I really didn't love anymore. And then I kind of fell into health and fitness coaching, and I got really, believe it or not, in the best shape of my life at age 55. I was in better shape. I did my first pull up ever. That wasn't even a goal to do a pull up, but it just happened to be in the program I was doing. I was like, okay, I'll do this.
Were
And
you a Beachbody coach or
yes, I was a Beachbody coach.
okay. All right.
I was invited to a group by
Are
my
you still doing
daughter.
Beachbody?
No, well, I mean, I drink my Shakeology, I love my Shakeology,
Yeah.
but I do not, you know, do the business,
Uh-huh.
as they say. So I'm a hardcore. I still work out. I mean, nothing better than see. My problem was who wants. I don't want to drive to the gym. Plus I hate changing in the changing rooms.
Yeah.
So I work out in my basement and do the thing and drink my shake, and I'm super healthy, and I love
Yeah.
that. But so I did this program. A lot of people are familiar with P90X.
Yeah.
It's the 30-minute version. It's P90X3.
Yeah.
So it came out about the same time started coaching. That's really how I got my coaching feet wet. Was I started to invite people into groups and help them with their health and fitness. And I just loved it. I mean, I loved that I was showing people how to live a better life. And I had gained some weight, through menopause, through the
Sure.
menopause process and things, I used to I was a size pretty much 7, 8 my whole life. I was a fat teenager. I shouldn't say the word fat. Fat's not a very good word, but I was an overweight teenager. And I lost 30 pounds my freshman year in high school. So I was always really focused to kind of an extreme, probably on my weight. I kept my weight, maintained it. But then when I got into my early 50s, it was really hard. I just the scale started going up, and I was like, I'm kind of eating the same thing. What's going on? Well, I need to work out, and I thought I ate healthy, but then I really wasn't getting the right nutrition. I was constipated, so
Yeah.
Shakeology really helped me with that. So, but I just started, really taking care of myself and doing the things that it required. And I think the community, the great thing that Beachbody provides is a community. You have a coach built in when you buy a program.
Yeah.
And so what Beachbody did for me is make me realize I can have my own business, even though the model of network marketing really isn't your own business, but it kind of gives the training wheels, right? Because you
Yeah.
kind of are your own boss in a sense. And so I was doing that. It was still kind of a side hustle type of thing. But then I started going to conferences on like business, how to build different streams of revenue. I was always very fascinating. I love to learn and I love to conceive ideas and I was doing this really great course on Facebook. And it was what did I call it? 5 days to a better you. And it was really to meet people and people loved it. People loved it. It was just a 5-day free group. And so I went to actually it was Marketing Impact Academy. I'll give her a little plug, Shalene Johnson's annual conference.
Uh-huh.
And I left that conference knowing I wanted to create a course. So that was my first endeavor of like building my own course and marketing my own course that was unrelated to Beachbody. It was really about how to have a better, more positive experience in life. And I actually created it. It was called My Path to a Better Me.
Uh-huh.
And
That's great.
so, yeah, 4 modules, and, I did that all on my own. I really didn't I mean, Shalene Shalene's, conference gave me the idea,
Yeah.
but I didn't have anybody to help me. So, a year ago, I was really not wanting to do the health and fitness thing anymore. And like I say, it's all a journey, we evolve, and, our journey takes us to the next train stop on where we're supposed to go. But I just when, I signed up for James Wedmore's Business by Design because I knew I wanted to do a course, and I knew I wanted to help people who were in the middle of their life. I didn't know what that looked like or what that would turn into, but I signed up, and I say to people, "You need to have there's so much education available on the internet. Just find who is doing what you need or what you want and latch onto them and learn what they're teaching. A lot of the stuff's free too. And then, keep what really helped me was 2 things, meditating and journaling
Yeah.
and journaling and being coached. I never invested in a coach. I mean, you think, I need a coach to like personal trainer kind of coach, but you never think about I mean, life coaching is more common now, but you never think that somebody like you or I is gonna really help. Like I know a lot of people in our age group have no idea how much a mentor could help move them
Yeah.
much quickly and accelerate their transformation to whatever they want to be. And so it's been incredible. I now have 3 coaches. So, yeah,
That's interesting because I read this book by Jack Canfield back in
I love him.
I wanna say 2010, called The Success
I
Principles.
love That's one of my favorite
One of
books.
the books that's one of the books that's life-changing, and it's on my
Yes.
website as a recommended book.
Yeah.
And one of the principles is hire a coach.
Mhm.
And, I would say that in 20 I think it was 2010 or 2011, I actually I went through the Jack Canfield coaching program,
Mm,
as a customer, and it's a 20-week program, and what I did in that time was I quit my job, I opened my own surgical practice, in that time. So it was between 2011 and 2012, and I reopened my practice in 2012 as an independent practitioner again to get out of a corporate medicine situation that I hated, and I created a job and a life I loved. And then what's happened for me is that as menopause hit me and I gained 50 pounds, it was like, what the hell's happening here? I went looking for some help and I'm a beach body coach too. But I didn't get that same relief like you did.
mm,
I did the programs religiously. I drank the Shakeology, but I didn't get that relief. And so I said,
mm,
well, I need to do more. And so I
mm.
did a bunch of research and I spent 3 years researching, trying to figure it out. I went looking for help for menopause, right? Looking for a course or anything to help me, and I couldn't find it, and so I spent all this time researching about, how to move, what to eat, and how to think, and those 3 things have really evolved into the course of membership that I offer now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I
Yeah.
think that, that's all a lesson for us to then take what we learn and then help people. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, I
it
mean
wasn't easy for you because maybe it was easy for me because I wasn't supposed to be teaching that. I was supposed to my journey was supposed to happen to the way it did now, but definitely and so it evolved for me into, and I remember my first hot seat coaching, and it was like one of the exercises was, if you are standing in a room full of people, what do you want them to know? What, like, you only have so much time to give them this really impactful message,
yeah,
and what is it? And it was so clear to me that what I wanted to say was, you are never too old to dream a new dream, to start something new, and to live the best life. Because I was sitting there at 47 thinking, like, this life is like, I have no passion whatsoever. And I wanted people to dream a dream that they were passionate about, to have something. Don't Doesn't matter where you are now, just start taking the little baby steps. And so within 90 days of signing up with James as my coach and doing his course, I had a program,
yeah,
and that's my heart now, and that's how I serve and what I love to do.
yeah,
So
and
that's
you get
it.
addicted to the transformations of your customers, and I think that's what has been so transformational for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a launch. The first launch was 12 people, and of those 12, I think about 6 or 7 of them really went through the program, but every single one of them had a major transformation in their lives. They started to feel better about themselves. They started taking action in different ways. They started understanding that menopause is just a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be like a full-time job managing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then in the next cohort, that we've had even bigger transformations. One of the ladies, it's so excited. It's just like I get teary thinking about it. But
Mm-hmm.
she had a near drowning as a child, and
Wow.
halfway through the course, she started taking swimming lessons,
Wow.
and she
That's
swims now.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just little things like that that just. And then I've got another one who's like all of her relationships with her family and everything have just blossomed because of something that was really shameful in her past that she decided to let go of
Mm.
and turn the story around.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just story after story after story like that, and we just love teaching
Yeah.
things.
Well, I think what people also don't realize is the community that of the like-minded people. you learn so much. I've learned so much through my process being
Yeah.
in these groups, and I know that my community is learning from each other. I'm doing a workshop right now, and like last night, I had my first of 3 and videos, and they're all talking with each other, strangers from the internet,
Yeah.
and it was just so rewarding to me. I woke up this morning feeling like, I don't know if I feel like one of the Washington Nationals who won the World Series. Maybe that's a little extreme, but like definitely won a game last night because of these people I saw perceptions changing. I saw, they were sharing aha moments they got from the session. So the community that is being built through what we do, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, the community aspect is really important. And you know what? My group they call themselves the Minomates.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Good to have a name.
Yeah, they name
The
themselves.
membership guy says you need a name.
Yeah, they name themselves, and then and then when we have our weekly calls, they call them Zoom ins.
Zoom ins.
Yeah, Zoom ins with the Minomates.
That's cute.
Yeah. Yeah. So
My
that's
my group is so my program's called Make the Rest Your Best.
yeah.
And so we're calling each other besties. We're besties, which
Oh,
is like,
see, that's great.
yeah. It's just shortcut, too. It's easy, but it's, you do turn into besties when you share vulnerable things.
Sure, yeah. So where can people find you?
So the best place to find me is
Okay.
notyouraverage.grandma.com because that's my website. And so I'm Not Your Average Grandma on Facebook. I'm Not Your Average Grandma with underscores between the words on Instagram. Because I don't know who, but somebody had that when I went over to Instagram a
That's
while ago.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much on social media a lot. My kids have taught me how to use it.
That's
I
good.
got on Facebook, I say, because I was stalking my kids.
Well,
So
our age group is on Facebook. That's where our audience is.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
we don't use Twitter as much unless you're Trump. And and
Well, I on Instagram, my
and
kids and all
Instagram.
their friends are on Instagram, and so
Yeah.
if I want to see what's going on with them, I got to go over to Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. The younger group is on Facebook, is on Instagram. Although older people are going to Instagram too now. But our audience is on Facebook, and that's just perfectly fine. I mean, Facebook is a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
platform
And
for
there's
us.
lots of guys looking for a gilf on Instagram. You know
Yeah,
what a
well,
gilf
yeah.
is?
Like grandma, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll leave it there. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So if you have questions for Laurie, please send an email to me, drgordon@menopausemovement.com, and I can bring Laurie back for a Q&A session. So if you have any specific questions for me, again, that's drgordon@menopausemovement.com. Laurie, I want to thank you for being a part of the menopause movement. I can't wait to have you come back and talk to us again.
Oh, well, thanks so much. It's been really
This
fun.
has been great. All right.
Yes, you even got me to share my most embarrassing story. So I don't know how that happened, but
You just did it.
yeah.
Hey, it's Dr. Michelle Gordon, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Menopause Movement Podcast. In this episode, we talked quite a bit about the Menopause Movement membership and the Menomates. And if you'd like to become one of the Menomates, just head on over to menopausemovement.com and we'll tell you all about it. Thanks so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement Podcast.